In the meantime, we have yet another breaking news update to bring you right now. Putting up this tweet here from Brett Baer saying, "Rest in peace, former senator and former vice presidential nominee Joe Lieberman, a good man who tried to reach across the aisle to make the country better. He died this afternoon after complications from a fall. Prayers up for his wife, Hadassah, and his family." Joe Lieberman was 82 years old. I want to bring in my colleague Andrew Kraft right now, who is also covering this breaking news story at the moment. And Andrew, a lot of people putting comments out on social media right now and sharing their memories, their thoughts, their prayers with his family, as well as the legacy that he leaves behind.
Yeah, Lexi, I think this is really a shock to so many who know and knew Joe Lieberman, who worked alongside him, who had the opportunity and chance to interview him. He was a frequent guest on the Fox News channel as recently as just last week with Fox's Neil Cavuto. And Lexi, as you know, we are in a presidential election year, and Joe Lieberman was kind of in the political consciousness as far as presidential politics are concerned for at least the last 20 to 25 years. And so he was currently serving as a founding chairman of the No Labels organization. Of course, we all know No Labels as this group that has an independent, bipartisan streak that has committed to putting forth a ticket this presidential election year. And Joe Lieberman was one of the founding chairmen of that group, No Labels. And so they have not yet released who the names of their ticket are going to be. But when you talk about ticket, Lexi, back in 2000, Joe Lieberman, then a Democratic senator from Connecticut, was tapped by Al Gore, Vice President Al Gore, to be his running mate in the 2000 election. And we know how contentious the 2000 presidential election was, and how important that was, how controversial that was for the country. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court to be decided there, of course, the key state of Florida. And so then Lieberman went back to serving as a senator. And during the George W. Bush administration, he came out in favor of President Bush at the time, his proponent of going into Iraq, the war in Iraq, the invasion in Iraq there in early 2003. And of course, he was a member of the Democratic Party, Lexi, and so many of his fellow Democrats really didn't forgive him for that support for Bush's effort of invading Iraq at the time, at the start of the war on terror. And he paid the price in party politics for it, so much so that he dropped his Democratic Party affiliation and became what he styled as an independent Democrat, so to speak. And so that's how he got back into the Senate. He was dropped there from the Democratic nomination in the Senate primary, I believe in 2006, but won the election anyway as an independent there in Connecticut. And then the 2008 presidential election rolls around, Lexi, and believe it or not, and this speaks to his independent streak, so to speak, he is being talked about as a running mate for John McCain on the Republican side. He spoke at the GOP presidential convention in 2008 on behalf of his friend John McCain. So he really was the definition of bipartisanship. He didn't go where the political winds took him. He did what he believed was right at the time. And so I was just talking to some of our political friends and reporters, kind of looking back on this fascinating political career, and it really was something unparalleled that we really haven't seen in the last generation. A member of the Senate, he was elected as a Democrat, he left as an independent, he had many Republican bona fides as well, and so he kind of did his own thing, Lexi, and it's just really, really sad and shocking news. The statement put out by his family says this: Senator Lieberman's love of God, his family, and America endured throughout his life of service in the public interest. And so he was so involved up until the very last moments. He suffered complications from a fall, and he died this afternoon. He was 82. He died in New York City. He represented the state of Connecticut, not too far away for so long in the Senate. Lexi, one of his former Senate colleagues, now President Joe Biden. And you see there the tributes pouring in from so many members of the Senate. Tom Carper of Delaware, Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, Ed Markey there of Massachusetts. George W. Bush with that statement there saying, Laura and I are saddened by the loss of Joe Lieberman. Jared Moskowitz there from Florida, the Connecticut Republican Party, and so many. And so you see Andrew Yang as well. And Governor Ned Lamont. And remember, Ned Lamont won the Democratic Senate primary against Lieberman, forcing Lieberman to run as an independent, Lieberman winning that top spot there for another term in the U.S. Senate. So he was, Lexi, somewhat of a political chameleon, and it really worked in his favor. And up until this year, he was really weighing in on the matters of the day, including the Israel-Hamas war, Lexi. He was the first Jewish American leader to be on a presidential, vice presidential ticket in American history. And that's why that was so significant, because just last week, he forcefully came out against his fellow former colleague, Chuck Schumer there from New York, the Senate Majority Leader. Remember Schumer issuing that really broadside attack against Bibi Netanyahu and how he's prosecuting the war in Gaza. And Joe Lieberman made his thoughts known about that. That was just last week, Lexi.
Yeah, a really wonderful tribute there, Andrew, and great description of all of the work that he has done. And as you said there, still making his work known even today on Fox News last week. And like you said, too, his comments about Senator Schumer, too. And as we've continued to touch on all of these tributes really pouring in, just another look here of all of these active social media posts that are being shared right now. And Andrew, you spoke with our colleague at Fox News, Chad Pergram. We'll play that out for just a moment. Before we get to that, though, what do we know about funeral arrangements?
So according to the family, Lexi, Senator Lieberman's funeral will be held on Friday at Congregation Agudath Shalom in his hometown of Stamford, Connecticut. And then an additional memorial service will be announced at a later date. And so I'll be interested to see whether or not he will have somewhat of a public outpouring in D.C., the town, our capital, where he spent so much of his time, so much of his career. And our thoughts and condolences here on Live Now from Fox go out to his family and his former constituents.
Absolutely. Well said. All right, Andrew Kraft joining me here with more on this breaking news update here. Andrew, thanks. We're going